In 7 short days, my wife and I will be moving out of this 2,700 square foot house into this 27 linear foot house. Yes, that's right. We are going to be living, traveling, and working full time in our Airstream. And there's a couple things on my mind today. Number one, we have put a lot of things into this travel trailer, and I want to go weigh it to see if we're overweight or not. The second thing is, now that we're going to be traveling full time, we're going to be hitching and unhitching a lot. And currently we're using the Blue Ox weight distribution system with our Airstream. Honestly, I don't love using the system. I had an accident with it when we first got our travel trailer, which was totally my fault. I'll put a link to the video down below so you don't make the same mistake. So I was just wondering, what if we just towed without the weight distribution? And that's when I noticed that the maximum tongue weight I can put on this stock receiver is 850 pounds or 600 pounds if I'm using an adapter down to a 2-inch receiver. And from previously weighing our trailer before, I know that my tongue weight is closer to 1,150 pounds. So as it sits right now, I couldn't tow without weight distribution even if I wanted to. So I did what any good American would do. I went on Amazon and ordered this Class 5 hitch from Kurt. If you're planning to change out your receiver, make sure you've got an impact wrench, and you might as well check the tire pressure on your spare tire while you've got it off. The process was pretty straightforward, and before you knew it, we had the new one installed. Here you can see a side-by-side of the stock one on my F250 and the much beefier Class 5 that can handle up to 17,000 pounds or 2,550 tongue weight. With a little bit of help from my lovely wife, got it bolted up in place, and we were ready to rock. I got everything hitched up, put the Blue Ox in place, and off we went to the scales. All right, so with our newly installed receiver hitch, we are taking the truck to weigh it. Coming up on a very sketchy...
Are you gonna go over this?
I'm gonna hit it at an angle.
Oh my gosh. All right, back at it.
Okay, so as I was saying, with our newly installed heavy-duty receiver hitch, we're pulling the trailer along with every single thing we think that we're gonna need to live in this thing full time, to do 2 main things: to find out if the trailer itself is overloaded, is it over its payload capacity, and are we over capacity on the truck too with the extra weight of the trailer on the hitch. Basically, I want to see the combined weight of everything. I want to see independently if the trailer is within its limits and if the truck is within its limits. Right now I have the weight distribution hitch hooked up, and I plan to unhook it while we're there and drive back home with no weight distribution on our new hitch to see how it feels too. So let's give it a shot. All right, it's pretty loud outside, so I'm just going to tell you before I get outside. Right now I have my front wheels on one pad, or one scale, my back wheels of the truck on another scale, and then all 4 wheels of the trailer are on a separate pad. So I'm just going to get a weight here with the weight distribution on, everything's still hooked up. This is going to tell me the weight of the entire rig together. So
does not tell us the weight of the trailer?
Not yet. We got to unhook and leave the trailer all by itself with the tongue on the back pad.
This one's $14.
Yep. All right, here we go.
All right, got it.
Check. Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to leave everything where it is, but I'm going to disconnect the weight distribution hitch and see how that changes the weight distributed between the front and back wheels of the truck. All right, now the weight distribution is disconnected. Nothing else has changed. We're going to reweigh and see how that changes, how much weight's on the rear wheels of the truck, how much weight's on the front wheels of the truck, and I don't think it should change anything with the trailer. When you're at one of these cat scales, it can be kind of a high pressure situation. You don't want to stay all day, so we're going to take screenshots of all these different things and I'll analyze them back at home. But now we're going to do the thing that Blakely is most excited about. I'm going to scoot the trailer back so the tongue jack and all 4 wheels of the trailer are on one scale. Got to completely disconnect.
There's someone waiting. Oh
yeah, be right back. All right, we're disconnected. 7,600 is the number we're looking for as a maximum on the trailer.
7420.
7420. All right, let's get hooked up. Somebody's waiting. All right, I wanted to get out and look how the setup looks with no weight distribution. I'd say the truck looks a little nose high, low in the rear for my liking. The trailer looks relatively level though. I forgot to bring a tape measure to check, but I'm not loving the look of that right off the bat. So it's been a couple months since we moved out of our house and have been traveling in this Airstream full time. So let's kind of recap everything we found out on the scale that day and talk about the experience towing both with and without the weight distribution. The first thing I want to cover is how can we know that the truck is not over capacity with or without the weight distribution? For that, we need to go to the sticker inside the door jamb. What we're looking for is this number called the GVWR, stands for the gross vehicle weight rating. This is how much your truck is allowed to weigh by itself, combined with any weight that you put in or on it, meaning on the receiver of your truck. So you can see on my sticker here that my F250, which is a 2016 6.7 turbo diesel, has a GVWR of 10,000 pounds. Now there's this other number called the GCWR. That's the weight of your truck with the tongue weight plus everything else that you're towing. This number is not usually on the sticker. You'll have to look it up. I can't remember exactly what mine is, but I know it's well over 20,000 pounds on my GCWR. Now, if you also look at this sticker, you can see that they have the independent ratings of the axles. My rear axle is weighted for 6,100 pounds, and my front axle is rated for 5,940 pounds. When you add those two up, that's actually over 12,000 pounds combined. One thing I've learned since buying this truck is that manufacturers typically will make the rating of the GVWR at around 10,000 pounds, because in some states, if the GVWR is over 10,000 pounds, they have to be registered as a commercial vehicle or they're taxed differently or something like that. But anyway, that's going to come into play here in a minute. Now, if I go back to our Airstream and look at the sticker on the side, we can see that it has its own GVWR. That means the max weight of the trailer plus everything that you're allowed to put in it, and mine is a max of 7,600 pounds. All right, so if you remember, the first thing that we weighed was with the trailer still connected to the truck and with the weight distribution still on. So you can see in my first printout from the cat scale here that my steer axle plus my drive axle add up to 9,880 pounds. That's really, really close to that 10,000 mark, and that's with the weight distribution on. Now let's look at the second time that I weighed with the weight distribution disconnected. You can see that the front axle went down in weight, 160 pounds down to 4,500 pounds. And you can see the weight on the rear axle went up to 5,440 pounds. That's an extra 220 pounds of weight on the rear axle without the weight distribution. The GVWR, meaning the combined weight of the steer and drive axle in this scenario without the weight distribution, was 9,940 pounds. That's even closer to the 10,000 pound mark. So you might be wondering, well, you went to all that trouble to install the Class 5 receiver to get your tongue weight capacity up higher, but aren't you maxed out on your GVWR? Well, technically, yes, if you go by the sticker. But in my mind, I'm going on the weight capacity of the front and rear axle combined, which is over 12,000 pounds. So I feel good about the setup, regardless of whether I go with or without weight distribution. Okay, now for the question that my wife really wanted to know. Is the trailer overweight? Have we put too much stuff in there? For that one, we're going to go to the third time that we weighed. We can check the weight of the trailer by itself by looking at the weight on the cat scale labeled trailer axle. Came in at 7,420 pounds. Remember, the GVWR of our 2023 27-foot Airstream is 7,600 pounds, so we had a little bit to spare. So to summarize, if I'm going off the GVWR of 12,000 pounds based on the axle ratings, we're in the clear on the truck, regardless of whether we use weight distribution or not. And we know that with everything we put in the trailer to live in it full time, we're just barely under the capacity of that. So in summary, we're good. One thing I noticed in the trip to the cat scale this time was that my tongue weight is way heavier than I thought it would be. If you want to figure out what your tongue weight is, what you need to do is take the measurement of the weight on your rear axle when you're hitched and subtract out the weight when you're unhitched. That will tell you how much extra weight you're putting on that rear axle. Even with the weight distribution on, I came in at about 1,380 pounds of tongue weight. That's a little heavier than I would like. I'd like to aim for about 15% of the weight of my trailer. So basically I need to move a couple hundred pounds that I have in the front of the trailer or in the storage compartment on the outside, somewhere else closer to the rear to get some of that tongue weight off. Now, if you remember when I was looking at the truck hooked up with no weight distribution, I commented on how much the rear bumper was sagging, causing the front end of the truck to go up, kind of pointing the headlights up in the sky. Well, since I'm within my limits, I decided to have airbags installed on the rear axle of the truck. I went with the Airlift 5000 airbags with an onboard compressor, and I found that with about 40 pounds of air in the airbags, I'm able to get the entire thing level. Now, keep in mind that airbags don't increase the capacity of how much you can tow. It still comes down to the numbers. All the airbags do is let you level the ride once you are hooked up. So over the last 2 or so months, we've towed over 1,000 miles, and I've experimented both with and without the weight distribution. To sum it up, I haven't noticed any negative impact of towing without the weight distribution. I've been on freeways, I've been on 2-lane roads, I've had semis pass us right next to us in both directions. Haven't noticed any blowing to the side or any increased sway or anything like that. If anything, I feel that when you're not using the weight distribution, there's a little bit more free-flowing action between the trailer and the truck, which makes sense because you have less rigid connection through those bars that have all the tension on them. So for example, if you go over a railroad track or over a bump, the trailer just kind of goes with the flow instead of feeling so tight and transferring all that energy so tightly between the trailer and the truck. And really, I like that idea because I don't want all that tension on the front of my Airstream, especially with the concern of front end separation that you see on a lot of these 27, 28, and 30-foot Airstreams that have these compartments in the front. Now, there was one situation where we were towing from San Antonio to Fredericksburg, Texas, and the wind gusts were really, really high. And on that day, I went ahead and put the weight distribution bars on because I knew I was going to be getting a lot of crosswinds, and I just wanted the extra peace of mind of having that extra sway control. Would I have been fine without it? Probably, but I think that's one of the benefits of having a weight distribution system that has anti-sway in it, because you can put it on when you feel like you might need it. So when we're towing not with the weight distribution on, I'm still connecting the Blue Ox receiver hitch because that's the only one that I have. And plus I like it because it's so long that it still allows me to open the tailgate of my truck when I'm hooked up. I just throw the bars in the back of the truck when we're driving. So the plan moving forward is to kind of take that same approach, tow without the weight distribution with the airbags inflated as often as I can. Until we get into a situation where I feel like I want the extra sway control, throw them on and maybe sacrifice the extra rigidity and stress on the trailer for the time that I'm towing with the weight distribution on. So if you want to see how this plays out in the future, I'll be making videos about it, I'm sure. So make sure you subscribe before you go. Thanks for watching.